All right, guys, so this lesson is going to be a little bit different. You're not going to see my face, you're just going to hear my voice, mainly because I want you to be able to see exactly what is going on. So this is our third lesson with fractions and the way that we can represent our fractions. I am teaching you 3 different ways to represent fractions. The first way that we learned was with a set model, which is where you're using a set of items. The second way was an area model, where you are drawing an area of space, and you're actually shading in to show a fraction. And then the third one is a linear model, which is where you're basically using a number line. So I uploaded this chart right here, okay? And this is where you can, I guess, look at all 3 options together. I have uploaded this to Schoology under the math page, but it says representing fractions, and it shows you that we're going to learn the 3 ways. It shows you a set model, it shows you an area model, and a linear model. Okay? So linear models shouldn't be new to you at all, because we have experienced these on our core bites a lot this year. Okay? So I'm just going to do a few examples. Sometimes you're going to have a blank number line where you have to create the fractions on it. Sometimes they are going to give you lines on there, and then you have to add just the fractions themselves. And then sometimes they're going to give you a number line with some fractions on it, and you have to figure out what the missing fraction is. So we're going to do all 3 of those, okay? So if the instructions were to say to create a number line showing 1/4, then you are going to start by drawing a line for 0. Then you would need to come and make a line for 1. And then you're going to divide your number line into 4 equal pieces, because if you have the fraction 1/4, then this is how many pieces you have all together, and this is where your period or your dot is going to be. Okay, so in order to divide them into 4 equal pieces, I like to start off by making a half point mark, and then I can do the other 2 pieces to make it 4. So again, there's the first piece, there's the second piece, the third piece, and then the 4th piece. And now I want to show 1 out of 4, which means I would come over here, and again, here's where my point is going to go. Sometimes we put an X over that, and then sometimes we can just put a dot as well. So in this case, I chose a dot, but I have represented 1/4 on that number line. Okay? So then, like I was saying, sometimes they are going to give you a number line that has lines on it already, and then it's going to be up to you to fill in the missing numbers. So at the beginning of every number line, you're always going to have a 0, and then if it gives you this and tells you to fill in the missing fractions, then this is going to be your 1, okay? And a lot of times when you have this particular scenario, this line right here and this line are usually bigger and taller than the other 2 lines. And so that's how you're going to know that that's your 0 and your 1, okay? Now, here, again, you've got to figure out how many pieces you have all together. So this is piece 1, piece 2, and piece 3. And then that tells you that there are 3 pieces all together. Well, in that case, you know that the denominator in your fraction is going to be 3, because again, the denominator tells you how many pieces you have all together. And then up here is where you know how many pieces it wants you to show. So if it were to ask you just to fill in the missing fractions, then here's what you would do. You would say 1/3, 2/3, and then you're done. This would be like 3/3, because it would be the whole thing. And remember, when we have a fraction that has the numerator and the denominator the same, that equals the whole thing, okay? It equals a whole. And then, of course, that 0 would be like 0/3, meaning you don't have anything at all. Okay, and then the last one I was mentioning sometimes will give you part of a number line, okay, and it might give you something like this, and then it might ask you to fill in the missing numbers or the missing fractions. So in this case, I know that my denominator for my fractions are of 5. That means that both of these are going to have a denominator of 5 as well. And I just have to go back in and fill in the numerator. Well, in this case, we are going to count in order, just like you would if you were just counting regular numbers. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, and again, this would represent kind of like 5/5. And if you have the numerator and the denominator the same, then you have a whole, and then the 0 is kind of like 0/5, and then you don't have anything at all. Okay, so if I were to be asked to draw a point at 2/3, then I would come here and I would represent 2/3. Okay, if I were to be asked to represent 3/5, then I would put a point here. So there are different tasks that you're going to have to be able to do when you are dealing with number lines and fractions, but basically I want you to be able to represent a fraction on a number line, which means you may have to start the number line from scratch on your own. It may give you the starting points, and you may have to fill in the missing fractions, and then here it may give you some fractions and you fill in the missing fractions. Okay, that's for future activities, by the way. So the activity that I have for you is where you're going to create a number line for the fraction that I've given you, and then you are also going to write that fraction in an equation using unit fractions. So it's basically the same task that you've been asked to do with set models and area models, and I even kept the fractions the exact same. I did that on purpose so that you'll know exactly what it's supposed to look like. You know what the fraction should look like, and that way maybe your answer will be closer to being correct instead of just guessing out of nowhere. So if I had the fraction, like I said, I was going to represent 3/5 by this number line, then I would draw this number line exactly like I did, 0 to 1, and I would put all of the fractions on there, put my point at 3/5, and then, remember before, in order to write that equation, you would simply take the fraction itself, sorry for the sloppy handwriting, and then you would take a unit fraction has the numerator of 1, and the denominator stays the same. But if I just have one of them, that's not equal to 3, so I have to keep going. So now I have 2/5, that's still not equal to 3/5, so then I do one more. So 1/5 plus 1/5 plus 1/5 gives me 3/5, and that's how I write the equation using unit fractions based on a fraction that I was asked to represent. Okay, I hope that this is clear and that you're able to understand, but if you have any questions at all, please, please, please don't hesitate to ask, because that's what I'm here for. All right, you guys have a great day. I'll see you later.